And just like exercising, it is sometimes really difficult to find the motivation. Well, it has been 1 year since we recorded our first Add Placeholder Text video, and in that year of writing, we have learned a lot. And so today we are going to share our top 10 things that we have learned in our 1 year of writing. Now, if the title says something different than 10, that's because each of us have 5 and there might be some overlap, but those are our 10.
And this is probably going to be one of the longer episodes, just because we've spent a lot more time. We've got 10 possibly different things, and we're going to react to that. That's probably more than we usually spend time on. But I am looking forward to hearing what we have not shared with each other, like we said. So this is going to be new to us as well. So I'm interested. If we think of your top 5 and my top 5, what is your number 5?
Number 5, very broad. Writing a novel is hard.
Surprise.
Yeah, and then under that, a little more specific to our situation, coming up with logically consistent fictional physics is hard.
Logically consistent, was it?
Fictional physics.
Fictional physics. I was thinking physical something.
Because we're dealing with time travel, trying to get that consistent is really difficult. But up on the general scale, I knew that writing a book was hard. I had started writing a book before and had kind of given up on it. So I already knew it was hard, but I still had an expectation coming in that we would have had made a whole lot more progress after the first year than we have. And it's made me realize just how much goes into writing a good novel.
And I'll echo your comment on the fictional physics. One of the ones that I did not include that was more of a personal thing was how attached I am to the idea of continuity, whether that's internal to the story or continuity between our fiction and what we do know about the real world. And that contributes to what you've discovered about the difficulty of fictional physics. Excellent. Mine, number 5, is a kind of a two-parter. One, the bar is extremely low to become a self-published author. Even if you want to be a Amazon bestseller for a day in a given tiny niche, it's really easy to just put in the work to accomplish being a self-published author, regardless of the quality of your writing. But on the other hand, the bar is extremely high, both for the amount of skill and the amount of luck that is required to become a New York Times best-selling author. And you need to be very high above the bar in at least one of those two. In either your skill or your luck needs to be way above the bar, not just barely above the bar.
Yeah, it's definitely a daunting task ahead of us.
Yes.
My number 4 is you can't plan everything up front. That's something I think that we started out trying to do, is we're going to outline every possible thing, and then once we're done with that, we'll just be able to write because we'll already know where we're going. But I think we've realized that there are going to be things that you're going to have to kind of adjust to and change a little bit as you go throughout your novel. And a little bit attached to that, another thing was most books probably have a lot of Easter eggs that I haven't noticed. Because as we've been planning things out, we're seeing how things connect to each other. And then even as we're writing a little bit, we realize, oh, I can add this thing in that would make this really cool over here. And there's probably a whole lot of books that I've read that have those little Easter eggs in them, all those details and extra thought that the authors put in that I haven't even noticed.
The things that make it that much more interesting the second read.
Right.
Which
Yes.
is a mark of really good fiction. And your comment about the not being able to plan everything all at once, it reminds me of something that's often said in the military, and that is no plan survives first contact with the enemy. You know, once you're in the middle of things, planning was valuable, but the plan itself is not as valuable, especially when you actually get into things. My number 4, like all art, there are many ways to get things wrong and do poorly. But because of that, that also means that there are many ways, many opportunities to excel and to shine. And it's easy for us as aspiring best-selling authors to want to try to hone every one of those all at the same time. But it's important to accept being bad at much of it so that you can put all of your focus on concentrating on becoming good at one thing at a time.
Yes. We do need to put in a lot of effort.
Mm-hmm.
Yep. So my number 3 now. Brainstorming with 2 people is much better than with 1, or much easier. We've found that when one of us gets stuck in one area, often talking through it together, the other person can get us unstuck.
Mm-hmm.
And that's something that has been very helpful for us. I think that's probably part of the reason why I stopped writing my first book originally, was because I got stuck and I didn't have anybody to talk through it with to help me get unstuck. So it's been a whole lot easier getting unstuck having 2 people working on the same problem together.
So your past 2 lessons learned have a little bit of overlap with some of mine coming up.
Okay.
Not this one, though. Maybe there's a little bit. Anyway, so my number 3, all writing advice is contextual.
Mm-hmm.
What works for one person may not work for somebody else, whether it's personality differences, whether it is survivorship bias, whether it is the curse of knowledge, somebody who is an expert giving advice from their standpoint where they stand later on. All of them together can cast serious doubt on any claim of a proven formula or a best practice. And along with that, this is kind of an A and a B, and that is story frameworks, which are a form of best practice or writing advice. They're a good place to help jumpstart our thinking, but they're not necessarily good as a rigid structure to constrain the story. So things like the 3-act structure, Freytag's pyramid, the hero's journey, all of those things, they're helpful frameworks to stimulate thinking, but not necessarily good ways to just try to make sure everything absolutely lines up rigidly.
And talking about contextualizing things, I have my statement here that I realize could use a little bit of contextualization. And because my number 2 is the more time you spend in the world of the book, the easier it is to write. And the contextualization is sometimes you just spend way too much time and you do need a break. But what I have found is the times where I've kind of taken a step back a little bit and haven't put as much effort into thinking about the world of the book, I'm not as motivated then to write about the book. And some things that go along with that, I've learned just how fun it is to get to know your characters and to get to know the struggles they're going through and get to know them really as people and what struggles they have, what desires they have. And it's taught me that writing a book is much more immersive and emotional than reading a book. Because we've had times where we've have nearly been brought to tears looking at the emotional depth of some of the scenes that our characters are going through and imagining what it would be like to read that. And that experience as a reader is probably not nearly as intense as what we as the authors are going through, figuring out these struggles that the characters are going through.
Very much the immersion into understanding who these people are, which ties very closely into my number 2, which was, it is hard to write a character who is different from me. And every character should be different from me. And it's about being able to empathize with somebody that I haven't met, being able to put my mind, put my emotions into what would they actually be experiencing in this place, having grown up with a background with experiences that are different from the ones that I've experienced, and being able to honestly reflect what somebody else who has lived a different kind of life might actually be feeling. It's difficult, and like you said, it's rewarding to be able to go through that experience.
Yes, it definitely is. That brings us to my number one point, which is creative writing is a muscle that needs to be exercised. And just like exercise, especially when you're first starting out, it is hard. But you need to be able to put in the work, the not being able to do it well, so that way eventually you can get to the point where you can do it well. And just like exercising, it is sometimes really difficult to find the motivation, especially when you know you're not going to be able to do as much or as well as you wish you could.
And it's going to hurt.
It is going to hurt. Yes, it is. But it is important to go through the pain and the struggle so that way you can get to the point where you reap the rewards of that.
Excellent. Yes. My number one, and this is similar to what you were talking about the value of brainstorming, and that is that collaboration and the resulting accountability for that collaboration is a game changer in keeping that momentum going. Just like having an accountability partner for doing your morning workout, for the exercise, just like that's true, having the partnership has been crucial in keeping our momentum going. I probably would have quit several times if we weren't doing this together.
Yep.
And then the B part of this is also, I read this so often in acknowledgments, especially of nonfiction, because that's what I've read most. But in the acknowledgments of books, people who talk about the value of the support they received from their spouse. So knowing how much Lana has supported this project and our co-work together, and my need to just go hold myself up away in the bedroom or in the basement, or I just need to be able to get my brain into this scenario. She's given the freedom, given the support, listened to us brainstorm and talk about this is what we think we're going to do, and she's been supportive of that. So that collaboration with us and the support from outside has been absolutely crucial in keeping things going.
Well, those are the 10 biggest things that we've learned, and I think we actually had 10 relatively distinct things. So our question for you today, what is the biggest thing that you have learned about writing? Let us know in the comments, and we will see you next week.